What's up guys, this is Miasin. So today we're ranking all the best decks from the Infinite Forbidden format. We've got 5 different categories, so the ones that are winning the whole thing. The top tier decks, so we're gonna have a lot of them in Top Cut, but I doubt that they will win even though they could. And then the solid rogue options, you know, they're not as good, but they can still do well. The mid decks, maybe we might find like 1 or 2 squeeze in Top Cut. And the last one is the snacks guy, McDonald's or Burger King Turbo, because your tournament experience will be over so quickly that you will be the snacks guy. Hey look, at least your friends will love you. Anyways, before we go any further, a friendly reminder to smash the like and subscribe button. You already know the drill. Huge shout outs to my sponsors Inspire TCG as well as Dueling. And also go check out my coaching. Link will be in the description box below because I can help you out with your tournament experience for the North American WCQ or even European WCQ. And with that being said, let's get right into it. Alright, so first things first, we got tier elements. Don't play that deck. Okay, Labyrinth is not too bad, but it's not too great because you can't play that many hand traps. I mean, you can, but then you're not even playing a trap deck anymore. To be fair, that's not even what Labyrinth is anymore. It's a deck that plays trap cards, but that isn't a trap deck. Yeah, if that makes any sense. Sharks, yeah, don't play that deck yet, but buy this deck now because the new support is kind of nice. Okay, every single Snake Eye deck is extremely good and very likely to win the WCQ. The thing about Snake Eye is that there are so many variants and a lot of them are bad for no good reason, so you might as well just play the best one, which is Fiendsmith Snake Eye. But Pure Snake Eye is also really good, Kashtira Snake Eye is really good, and then Fire King Snake Eye, that's another category. And then there's also some other gimmicky builds of Snake Eye. Don't waste your time with them because they're really just not good enough. Infernoid, this deck is actually not bad because if it goes first, the boards are pretty much unbreakable. You can make like 8 interruptions with 1 card, but going second, it's worse for no good reason because you can't play hand traps and you can't play board breakers. Instead of that, you got a lot of Infernoid bricks in your deck, which is good against some kind of decks because you just have like more natural gas instead of relying on hand traps that may or may not do anything, but more often than not, unfortunately, I want to say this is not the format for Infernoid yet. Flunderies is another kind of solid rogue deck. It's not super competitive, and the reason for that is because you need Shifter or Featherstorm to win. If you don't have one of these 2 cards, you're playing a really terrible deck. I mean, that's Flunderies in a nutshell. But the problem that I have with this deck is that now that people can start turboing out Floodgates with the Beatrice with Angel Blue Tears, now when you go second, even your board breakers might do nothing. All they really need is to get like a Magic Deflector or something, and that shuts down a lot of your cards. Or they might have some other Floodgates that would be really good against Flunderies. And since the deck cannot play hand traps, it's just in that category where you need to rely on luck to win. Okay, Sword Soul is also dog shit. It actually kind of got a nerf, honestly, since the ban list. Like, Baron getting banned, but getting Protoss in exchange doesn't even feel like a plus because now you just lose to Nibiru every single time. And that is dog shit. Okay, Drytron is that deck mid? Yeah, it's definitely mid, but it's a good mid. And the reason for that is because you can still play like 9 non-engine, or maybe 12 if you really want to push it and make your deck less consistent, which I don't know if I recommend. There are some lines to beat Nibiru and other hand traps in general, but it's just another light deck that loses to Bestials in a format with a lot of Bestials because the Fiendsmith engine will be prominent. So I don't know if I'm a big fan of Drytron at the moment, but again, it might have some nice potential in the future. Voice is Voice. Probably at the very bottom of rogue options that are good. So again, this category doesn't mean your deck sucks. Your deck is not good enough. I'm trying to be politically correct because otherwise, if it were up to me, I'd say dog shit. To be fair, I say everything is dog shit. So anyways, Voice is kind of shit because if you don't draw hand traps going second, you will cry. And if you go first and you don't draw the nuts, you will also cry because your deck doesn't make enough interruptions, at least compared to Snake Eye. But it's still not a bad deck because you don't need much to win. Like, your 1-card combo still gets you to like an Omni Negate and a trap card. Not really. No, not the 1-card combo. But the 2-card combos can do some nice things. And when you draw like 2-card combos and then like 2 hand traps and another like splashable engine card like Ostinato, then you just feel nice, you know? Okay, Rika. That deck is anywhere between solid rogue to here if your name is Jessica Robinson. Otherwise, don't play that deck. It's just too complicated. It's like a 60-card pile with like Ragnar Rika. I kind of know what it looks like. I haven't really played against it in a while because I don't really know what the Rika cards do too much. I mean, I kind of do, but I don't really understand what they try to do in Sun Avalon Rika. It's just, again, too complicated. I don't have the brain cells to understand any plant interactions. Salamangrate is pretty nice. It can play a lot of hand traps too, which is good. 12 to 15 hand traps, something like that. Maybe more if you want to decrease consistency or play over 40, which is always a possibility in a deck that's already super consistent. I don't have anything negative to say about the deck. The deck even has some lines through Nibiru, which is cool. Fiendsmith Chimera, another great deck. Going second, it's worse though, because now you play so many illusion cards, so many just splashable cards in general, to the point where you have even less non-engine, so you're going first is broken, but you're going second. Even though you do have some nice gas, it doesn't feel good enough. If your Mirror Sword does not get stopped, then you're not getting to Berthomed, which means that you're also not playing the game, which means that your deck does nothing, which means that you suck. Runic Stun is a top tier deck, even though it pains me to say this, because if you play Runic Stun, you might as well unsubscribe from this channel. I do not like you. Magical Musketeer, it's probably not its time to shine yet, but it's a good deck, because the Fiendsmith Tractus can search the Magical Musketeer cards, which is irrelevant, but it's really cute. Centurion is another one of those solid rogue options, just because it can play Shifter, it can FTK you. If people are relying on board breakers like Dark Ruler and Evenly, this deck doesn't care about any of those cards. Unchained, less good than Yubel, but it's still a good deck. So obviously, everything that you can do in Unchained, you can do in other decks that can just play the Unchained package. Like Labyrinth, for example, can play one Sharvara in the trap, and it can do the... I mean, I guess it can't really end on Caesar, but, you know, it's just... The Yubel engine can do that completely easily, just by going to Fiend monsters generically, and then making Yama search Sharvara, and then get your Abominable Unchained, Abominable Trap card, and then the Disarray, or whatever, Disarray, no, my god, Disarray, yeah, I think that's the pronunciation for the card. That card can negate Dark Ruler no more, as I've showcased yesterday when you got the Unchained Trap card, which is really filthy, but then you get hit by a second Dark Ruler and you die. So it's a good deck, but my issue with the Unchained is that everything that it can do, other decks can also do, and probably better, while also playing less bricks, or maybe the same amount of bricks. Yubel also has to play a lot of bricks. Ritual Beast, another top tier deck, because it can play Shifter, and it benefits off of Shifter. As a matter of fact, the Mpengu becomes a full one-card combo when you have Shifter. So yeah, you really want to see the card every single time. Even against the Shifter decks, you don't care. You still keep it in because it helps you out. That's crazy. Despia is maybe worse or better than Runic Stun. I don't really know. I don't really care too much. Going second, the deck just completely sucks against the Fiendsmith decks, because they can turbo out Angel Blue Tears into Dimensional Barrier, and that will make you extremely unhappy because the deck can't really play any non-engine. And it also needs to like sack every single time to go second. You need to like draw the nuts. You need to draw a very good, consistent hand, and then you also need to draw like board breakers. When that doesn't happen, I don't think the deck can break the one-card combos or the two-card combos that any of the top-tier decks have. Melodious is in a weird spot, because if people choose to play board breakers, this deck sucks, but if people choose to play hand traps, this deck is extremely good, because this deck just sponges all the hand traps that are thrown at it. You Ash Ostinato, they used first movement solo or a second Ostinato because they're good like that. Or when you Veiler them, they just go normal summon another monster and then go for the Link 2 or whatever, and then they play from there. And the other hand traps are also really bad. Nibiru does less than nothing, Drool does nothing, but a single Dark Ruler or Droplet is enough to completely kill the deck, so that's the reason why I'm not a super big fan. Okay, Orchist is very terrible, but again, you will be making a lot of friends if you play Orchist, just because, yeah, sure, it's a fan favorite, but also, you will lose so quickly that everybody will like you for being the snacks guy, which is, again, still a good thing. Vanquish Soul, maybe if your name is Steven Santoli, it's not bad, but don't play Vanquish Soul. Or also if you're Steven Medhurst, that's also another way to make this deck feel good. Okay, Rescue Ace is in most players' top tier section, but not mine, just because it plays a lot of bricks, so I'm not a fan. It's the worst Fire Fiendsmith deck out of all of them, just because of the amount of bad cards you gotta play. That's really it. Dragon Link is also in the mid section, but it can play hand traps, and the end board going first is shit. I don't even know how I'm trying to justify it, because there's no more Bowlord Savage. But also, people are no longer playing Typhon, because everybody has to play Fiendsmith, the Fiendsmith cards, which means that the extra deck space is super tight, so if you make Boral and Dragon going first, you're gonna be winning a lot of games, or even Chaos Angel. A lot of decks don't really have any outs to that. Alright, Gimmick Puppet, another top tier deck yet again. We have a lot of decks in that section, but this deck, it can FTK, so obviously when it goes first, it's super scary. It's really consistent, but it's not consistent at FTKing. That's my issue. It's just consistent at playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And it can play a lot of hand traps, and going second, it has some ways of breaking boards. You can go with Condolence Puppet, send your Terror Baby, your Bisdoll, and then banish both, and then your opponent can't respond to your Gimmick Puppet cards, and also cannot target your Gimmick Puppet cards, which means that there are a lot of things that you can do going second against some kinds of boards. You can break, you can play through a lot of interruptions, depending on what they are, but some other interruptions that don't target or it might be proactive, it might be a little harder. Like Appaloosa is just so annoying because you can negate the Terror Baby and then negate the Bloody Doll in the hand effect and then you just die. So I'm just not a super big fan just because it can't FTK every single time when it wins the dice roll, but it doesn't have to do that. You can make 2 interruptions and then end on some hand traps and that should be good enough. Against certain decks, maybe not Snake Eye and U-Bell, so that's my issue because destroying is not super great. But stealing a monster is definitely great. Kashtira, I don't like this deck. No, it's definitely not there. Yeah, it's probably like around the Centurion mark just because you can play Shifter. That's about it. Honestly, deadass, all those decks, all those stupid Shifter decks, you remove Shifter from them and they suck ass. And Kashtira is no exception. The Yugi deck is cute, but don't play it. Even though it's not bad. It has some 1-card OTK combos. And it can play hand traps. And it has a good matchup against a lot of decent decks out there. Purely, yet again, another top tier deck. It's probably there. Another deck that can also kind of play Shifter in a way, but then you have to play only with your White Cats, which is kind of weird. You can play through Shifter and around your own Shifter. It's really weird. This deck is just overall kind of sus. Alright, Blackwing, I don't know where to put this, and I don't really care. Memento, it's probably the best top tier deck. I think it's so new that people don't really know when to stop this deck. It has a lot of 1-card combos and even some 2-card combos when you draw just like above, like below average. Going second, I mean, it can play like 12 to 15 hand traps as well. Again, depending on how you see your consistency level. If you want to play Prosperity, you can do that, and then you play 12 hand traps. Raid Raptor, yeah, no, it's actually it's not good at all. Unfortunately, there's way too many hand traps that counter this deck at the moment. There's Ogre, Mourner, Veiler, Imperm. When you go first, I think you can't lose against the Snake Eye decks anymore. Exodia, also mid. Resonator. It's so easy to stop when you understand their choke point. I think that it's the Crimson Resonator, the ones that summons 2 monsters from the deck. Yeah, you just hold your Imprint for that and their deck does nothing. They can still end on like a Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss through that and the trap card, obviously because they can inherently access those cards, but they're gonna be doing way less. And they also have to hard draw quite a lot in order to get there. And the level 6 Synchro, if you can find a way to like banish it or something before they can use the effect of Crimson Resonator, so like if you go first against them, they're gonna be in a terrible spot. Going second, this deck is unplayable as hell. Unless, of course, your opponent misplays against you, in which case you're really happy as the Resonator player. U-Bell is the second best deck, right after Snake Eyes. It's obviously extremely powerful. It's unbeatable if it goes first, but going second, it has issues. Fire King is somewhere here, maybe a little less good than Melodious. Honestly, this deck is just not worth playing anymore. It's just completely power crept by the Snake Eye Fiendsmith deck. There's really just no incentive to playing it, even though I don't think it's terrible at all if you do want to play Fire King. I still obviously am biased towards it, but I still have to be reasonable and understand that it's not worth playing over these decks out there. Marincess is also a solid rogue option, probably on the same level as the Chimera Fiendsmith deck. Okay, White Woods, very, very interesting. If it goes first, it's pretty much unbreakable. So I want to say it's a little better than Centurion, just because when you go uninterrupted, the end board also beats like Cosmic Cyclone and board breakers in general, and they can beat hand traps really, really well. I've made like a really in-depth spreadsheet on this deck if you guys are interested. Check it out, it's on my channel, I've uploaded recently. But it will teach you how to play this deck through every kind of hand traps, and also with every single possible combination of cards. Like, you can draw 2 Toy Box, and that's full combo through Nibiru. It's crazy. Very fun deck overall. I'm a huge fan of White Woods. Speaking of fun, Lightsworn Fiendsmith is also super fun, but it's not really good, only because going second, it can't play hand traps, so it's just gonna suffer a lot. But it's really nice if it goes first. They can also beat hand traps relatively easily. Nibiru, I know for a fact, doesn't do much because you can make Hieratic Seal, or you can make Caesar or Appaloosa. You have a lot of options to beat hand traps, so it's not like the end of the world. But going second, if you also get like floodgated out to death, or you get hit by like Bestials and different Dimension Ground or Shifter and stuff like that, then your deck does literally less than nothing. Sprite is one of my favorite solid rogue options, and as a matter of fact, it won the WCQ in South America. Well deserved, because I think Sprite is extremely underrated. It's always been a decent option, it's just that people didn't really want to see it as a viable strategy over all the fire decks out there. But Sprite is always going to be there, it's always going to exist, it's always going to be a solid deck. And it got indirect support in terms of, in the form of the Ice Barrier cards, the Mirror Magic, and the Continuous Spell. So now you can access Toad again using Gigantic, summon Swap Frog, and then send the Mirror Magic, and then get your Monster Reborn Revive back, and then you got 2 level 2 Aqua Monsters. So that's cool. You can make an Omni Negate. You can also play the Melfi engine on top of that in order to make even more options when you got 2 level 2 bodies. But then that would be like 4 bricks in your deck, so you might as well just play like a Snake Eye Fiendsmith deck. But yeah, it was in a good spot before we got the Fiendsmith engine. Now it's a little less good, but still overall really good, and you can play a lot of hand traps as well. And it can also kind of play Shifter in a way, or at least I can side deck it, but I wouldn't main deck Shifter in Sprite. 10 by Dragon is very clearly one of the better decks to play, even though I don't think it's going to be a deck that's going to win any event. I don't think 10 by Dragon getting first place in anything will ever make sense, just because it means that you got to sack for a huge period of time, but for like a small event, it can be good. And in order to top an event, 10 by Dragon can also be a decent option. But yeah, this deck cannot go first, which is funny because usually that's the argument that I would say for being bad when you can't go second. But 10 by Dragon, obviously it wants to go second. It's extremely good at going second. But at going first, all you really do is Hieratic Seal Pass, which is good, but if you can't summon anything broken with Hieratic Seal, then all it really is a compulsory evacuation device that doesn't target. It's... I've seen better. I really have seen better. And also, people are ready for this deck. Everybody has, like, Ghost Ogre and some... Just, I don't know. Just, you're not... And D-Bear. Yeah, if you go second even with 10 by Dragon, you might still lose. And some people are playing Rise to Full Heights with Beatrice so that you can't really attack them. All you really gotta do is, like, remove the monster that is being targeted by Rise to Full Heights so that there is no way you can even declare an attack that turn. And the last deck is Ice Barrier. Jesus, I almost died there. There's a bunch of ways of playing Ice Barrier. There's the Pure Ice Barrier deck, and then there's the Runic Ice Barrier. I think Runic Ice Barrier is the best one. Obviously, I'm a little biased. I had a lot of fun creating that deck and just showing you guys the combos. You can draw 7 cards. There's Ravenous Croc to draw 3. There's Coral Dragon. And then obviously there's a Runic Fountain. And you can make some big boards. You can make Lancia, Dragonic Ancestor of the Ice Spirit Mountain, or the Ice Spirit, or the Ice Mountain. They changed the name, whatever, it's stupid, it's not an Ice Bear monster, which is the worst decision ever, but I understand, otherwise it would have been broken, not really. This deck is kind of meh going second, but going worst, a lot of going first, Jesus, going worse. Going first, a lot of hand traps will do nothing against you, including Droll and Valor, because you can make Herald of Arclight before either of these cards are live, and then obviously under Herald of Arclight, you just cannot use those cards. And then you can also use the Herald to negate Nibiru, which is how you beat Nibiru when you got, like, some Runic cards and Mirror Magic. So yeah, I want to say that's a relatively accurate representation of the field post-Infinite Forbidden, but you guys let me know how you feel about the upcoming format. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys very soon. Peace.